Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a new edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. We're having some interesting technical difficulties this evening. So, my guests are already up on the screen. Let me introduce myself first. I am a public relations and marketing professional who happens to have a passion for social justice, voter advocacy, and culture. And tonight, we're taking a pivot from politics tonight, and we're going to focus on culture, specifically a troubling phenomenon that is happening in the Black community. Domestic violence is not unique to the Black community at all. However, recently we've had a number of incidents that have happened nationwide, made big national news, and caused a great deal of discussion on social media. And I have to say that one of my guests was who reached out to me was Jeff Wimbush saying, Pam, I want to talk about it. And last week I was out of town and we couldn't really do it, but tonight we're going to get into it. The late Malcolm X once said that the Black woman is the most disrespected and unprotected person in America. And I tell you, in times like these, I would definitely agree with him. My guests and I are going to discuss some specific cases that made national news and how these violent situations happened, and what are some of the signs, and more importantly, what are some solutions? I want to tell you that one of my guests backed out at the last minute, and she is a domestic violence social worker. So it would have been really helpful to have her on. But with that said, if there's anybody out there in the audience who happens to be in that area, we definitely would love to hear from you. And I am having some difficulties with my screen. Let me see. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can see my comments tonight, unfortunately. We'll see if we can fix that. All right, so let me introduce my guests. First, I have Mr. Jeff Wimbush. Jeff, raise your hand. Smile. He is an award-winning writer, reporter, and essayist who has worked and contributed to numerous mainstream, alternative, and Black media publications, including The Root, Columbus Dispatch, and the Columbus Alive. He is a member of the National Association of Black Journalists and lives in Columbus, Ohio. Welcome back to the show, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Pam. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And next up, we have, who is not a stranger to the show, Miss Latrice Davis. Latrice is one of my regular commentators on the show. She is currently the Associate Court Clerk in the New York County Family Court. She is a very strong community activist, having been handpicked to serve on the Queens Community Board 6. She currently serves on the Transportation Street Safety Committee, the Land Use Housing Landmarks Committee, and numerous other committees on that Queens Community Board 6. Latrice is also a former online editor for the Associated Press. Welcome back, Latrice.
As always, Pam, pleasure to be here. I look forward to this conversation with you and Jeff. And I'm very excited that you mentioned my new job title. As of Thursday, I finally got my promotion. So I'm back on probation again, but I'm ready and I'm excited for what lies ahead. Thank you so much for having me here.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. Folks, I can't see I've done something. StreamYard has changed some things, so I cannot see your comments. And that's the best part of the whole show. But at any rate, we'll keep going. There are three stories I want us to focus in on. The first one was about the vice mayor of Coral Springs, Florida. Her name was Nancy Medeyer Bowen. And she married her high school sweetheart. Her husband was her high school sweetheart. He has been detained for her murder. Now, what's interesting about that case, he's a marksman shooter. That's something that he does for fun, go to the range weekly, I understand. And he told his uncle that what he had done. However, when he went to court, he did not confess to anything. So things are at a standstill right now for that. Um, the second case, which really created a whole lot of a firestorm, was wait a minute, let me go back to that first case. Vice Mayor of Coral Springs, Nancy Meteor Bowen, was also going to announce her candidacy for Congress the very next day after she was unalived. And he told his uncle he couldn't take it anymore. And that was all that we've heard. We don't know anymore. The next case was Dr. Serena Fairfax. She was unalived by her husband, the former Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax, with their teenage children in the home. And there's a whole lot to be said about that case. That case really created a firestorm talking about mental health issues, about Black men, et cetera, et cetera. So, Jeff, since you brought up all of this to me, encouraging me to do this show, I'd love to hear listen to you talk about what made you feel that it was something that needed to be discussed.
You know, for a very long time now, for at least the last decade or so, the phrase Black Lives Matter has been something that we've rallied around, we've marched for, we've demonstrated, we've demanded changes and reform when Black men, women, and children have been gunned down by police or by other acts of violence, such as, when Trayvon Martin was taken out by George Zimmerman. But we don't seem to have those rallies. We don't seem to have those marches. We don't have that same sort of energy when it's domestic violence, when it's Black men who are taking the lives of Black women. And what made this the case of Dr. Serena Fairfax particularly egregious, in my opinion, was how some men who will remain nameless tonight, because I'm not trying to start any drama, but some men rushed to normalize Justin Fairfax. They talked about him as a former lieutenant governor of Virginia, as a successful politician, as a frat brother, as someone who was a nice guy and who had who lost his race when he tried to go run for governor because some allegations were made by I believe 2 women about sexual misconduct by Mr. Fairfax. And that pretty much croaked his political career. And apparently from that point on, he went into something of a tailspin. But the problem was that really kicked it home for me was that there was so much energy spent trying to say, oh, he needed mental health. Oh, he was a good guy. Oh, I feel so sorry for him. And even in one particular case, someone said, wow, she really must have said something to set him off. And I was like, okay, y'all got to stop with this. Mm-hmm. You cannot say you glorify Black women and that you treat your Black woman as a queen when you go out there and you go on public spaces on social media and you clown Black women, you degrade Black women, you demean Black women. Serena Fairfax became a supporting character in her own story. Justin Fairfax, not diminishing whatever he was going through, but the rush to try to humanize him, try to erase Serena Fairfax from the equation. And that is outrageous, it's disgusting. and the people who engaged in that, even if they did it unintentionally, they know who they are, they know why they did it, and I believe we should call a thing a thing.
Mm-hmm.
If black lives matter, black wives matter, black daughters matter, black
All right.
mothers matter, black sisters matter, black women that are your friends matter, black women that are your colleagues matter, black women you don't even know, they matter. And we shouldn't have to take what happened to Nancy Matea Brown and to Dr. Serena Fairfax and to all the other nameless sisters who catch on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, weekend, 24/7, 365, no days off, no holidays. We have got to do better than just trivialize what happens to black women at usually, I'm sorry, we say at the hands of black men.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to say, well, can't we just like both sides this? No, there are no both sides to this. The most acts of domestic violence in the black community are happening from black women being preyed upon by black men, period, full stop. And we need to be honest about that, because until we cannot talk about solutions until we correctly identify what the problem is.
Mm.
And I'll go one step further. It's not just black men. It's black men that they, pledge love to. Like, they took vows. These are men. These aren't strangers. These are men that they have known for a long time, although clearly by their actions, they didn't know them as well as they thought they did. And I mean, I understand your need, your desire to be polite, Jeff, but I've always been one to call a spade a spade. So I saw those Facebook posts by Roland Martin and a whole bunch of other guys saying, oh, he was a great fraternity brother. It's like, okay, that he may have very well been a great fraternity brother, but he killed himself after killing his wife. Like, it was almost like they were treating what happened as an afterthought. The focus was on, oh, he served, he was a public servant, in Virginia. He was a fraternity brother. He did all these he was in the community doing all these good things. It's like, and again, all those things may very well be true, but he killed his wife and then killed himself in front of their kids. Like there's no getting around that. And I think what bothered me about how the story was being covered was almost like you said, Dr. Fairfax was a supporting character in her own story. And I often ask myself, well, what about the children? I mean, I can, even if they weren't home, to lose your parents under such circumstances can, traumatic's the only word I can think of. But to be in the home when all of that played out, to have borne witness to that, I mean, it was almost like nobody was thinking about that, whereas that's where my mind went, because I just thought to myself, having lost both my parents under totally different circumstances, my parents passed away from cancer, but that was traumatic and stressful for me. So I can only imagine what losing your parents to gun violence, to domestic violence is like. And what happened on the night of April 15th, early hours of April 16th, tells me that this was not a one-time incident. I mean, now I was starting to think to myself, I don't know whether or not he sexually assaulted those women, but given what he did to his wife, it's not far-fetched now to say that, yeah, he could have very well raped that woman. We'll never know, but that's where my mind went when all of this broke 10 days ago.
Mm-hmm. I will say, going back to the vice mayor of Coral Springs, because that was the very first case that we heard. Mm-hmm. They were high school sweethearts, and then they made it all the way to marriage, and they looked happy and everything. We saw pictures of them dancing and cuddled up and all that kind of stuff. And getting back to
Looks can be deceiving. I think we find that out all the time. I mean, like, I don't know how active you are on social media these past 24 hours, but Klay Thompson and Meg Thee Stallion, that story's all over social media right now. And at the end of the day, as cliched as it is, it remains true. We don't know these people. We don't know what goes on in their homes and their marriages. I remember reading an article, a friend of Dr. Fairfax Like they had met up for brunch a couple of weeks ago, like at the end of March. And she said Dr. Fairfax seemed fine. Like she had no reason to think her story would have ended the way it did. But what it comes down to is I saw a comment about patriarchy. It's patriarchy and misogyny. That is the root of why we're having this conversation. And I just want to take a quick moment to thank Jeff for initiating this, because I think back to a panel I went to years ago on domestic violence. And there was a woman named Gladys. I think her last name was Perez, but she would organize. She was like a coordinator for a DV group called the Brides March. It was in honor of a woman who was shot and killed by her ex-boyfriend on her wedding day. She had ended that relationship. She moved on with her life. She was engaged to another man. She was about to get married, but on her wedding day, the ex-boyfriend showed up and shot and killed her. And I'll never forget what Gladys said. She said, if men are part of the problem, and clearly they are, then they gotta be part of the solution. That is why we've been asking men for the longest, hey, call your brothers out. Call your brothers in. Pull them to the side and have conversations with them. Let them know when they're going down the wrong path. Let them know when they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And that is why I'm glad that Jeff initiated this. So thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. I have to, I got to give credit where credit is due. I have to. One of the things that, and I'm gonna back up on those people that have talked about Justin as being their good frat brother. I haven't heard anything particular about the vice mayor's Nancy Bowen's husband. Anybody saying any comments about him? There's not been anything negative. But what I'm going to say is, to be fair, that when we hear news like that shocks us, especially about people that we think we know, that we have been in conversation and communion with, it's sort of like your mind just processes things to say, oh, it couldn't be that, it couldn't, it just, you tend to have to make you tend to have to rationalize. And I think that's just a natural thing that people do. We tend to have to rationalize why we feel upset and to kind of compartmentalize our feelings. I get what you're saying, Jeff, but I think on the other side of that, that's almost like a natural thing that we do. But it is very important, like you say, to not make it be like it's okay that he did this type of thing.
I don't want to be. I guess I might show my age. I think that when you've grown up, we've had young men growing up in an age of not just misogyny, but a world where YouTubers like a Kevin Samuels can become multimillionaires by dumping on Black women.
Yeah.
When incel culture is something that is not just white boys, it's Black boys too. Mm-hmm. Hatred and disrespect toward women has been commercialized in music, in rap, in fashion, in all types of ways. And that we do not, that as you said about Malcolm X's quote. Let me just look down here just to pull that up again from 1962. The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. That was 64 years ago. Malcolm said that. What's changed? What's changed is that those type of conversations that men would have among men, in men's spaces, in the bar, in the barber shop, over a beer, are now on YouTube, are now on TikTok, are now on Instagram, are now on social media, where you can talk about how you think Black women are trash, or how Black women aren't beautiful, or Black women's hair is too nappy, or Black women's bottoms are too big. You can make a good amount of coin by going out there and just dumping on Black women. So it's not a too far of a jump to go from hating on Black women for fun and profit to violence against Black women because you have men who don't know what's wrong with them, don't want to get help, or if they are getting help, they're not getting the right kind of help. And the first thing is when you teach boys not to respect and regard women as not just people that, they're not just icky girls. They're human beings. They're your equals. And sometimes, so I have to say, they can be vastly superior in so many ways that we call success in this country. Who has more degrees? Who has a higher standard of living? Who makes more money? Who works harder? Who does this? Now, I'm a man, okay, and I'm a proud black man. I love my brothers, but I'm going to be first to say it. Until we get our problem together, what our problems are, as Malcolm said, until we have self-respect for ourselves, how can we respect anybody else, including our own women, the ones who brought us into this world? I don't know of a single man who got here without a woman's help somehow. So the idea that we would go out there and then clown women, demean women, degrade women, disrespect women, and then say, "Oh, well, I didn't mean anything by it. I'm just trying to do what everybody else is doing." No, do what everybody else is not doing. Be that guy. Be that weirdo who actually holds the door open, who actually picks up the check, who actually, pays the bills, to meet your responsibilities, and does what you're supposed to do because it's the right thing to do. It's not complex. It's not complex. It's not complicated. I really don't think we've been indoctrinated to hate ourselves. Okay. But we should not carry that hatred and push it out toward women and children. That's unacceptable. Under any condition, I can't excuse it. I can't apologize it. And I cannot rationalize it.
I agree that we have been indoctrinated to hate ourselves because, when I was a teenager, I had to navigate low self-esteem like a lot of kids do. But I think the thing is, as I've gotten older, and this is something I would always say to myself throughout adulthood, I'm the kind of person, if you're living your life and doing your thing, you don't have time to hate. Like, hating you is not going to help me get the way I want to go. So, just like earlier today when you had the post about the current occupant of the White House, my position is I want to see him in prison. I don't want to see him dead. That doesn't serve me. And before last night, I would often say to people, I want to see that man evolve. But he has to put in the work to make that happen. And at some point, he has to want it. And based on his actions, I don't think he does. So I'm the kind of person, just like I'll meet you where you are, I'll leave you where you are. And to bring this back to tonight's topic, with these guys, too many men, not all men obviously, but too many men have this mindset of they meet a woman, they hang out for a couple of hours, they drop some dollars, and then turn around and act like they did her a favor. In this day and age, women have their own money, they have their own education, they are self-sufficient. So to come at, say, someone like me and say, "Oh, I did you a favor by taking you out," it's like, I can buy my own dinner. I have bought my own dinner. And depending on the dish, I can cook it too. And keep in mind, my cooking skills are very basic. I am not Betty Crocker, but I'm not going to starve either. And in the case of the women who lost their lives recently, whether it's Nancy Bowen or Dr. Fairfax or the two sisters who are still in the hospital in Louisiana, I don't know their entire stories, but it was clear that these women were self-sufficient. They weren't dependent on a man. And in the case of the woman who's in the hospital in Louisiana who lost all her children, when she regains her physical strength and her mental strength, I mean, that's trauma.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that out there.
What's interesting about both of those two cases, about Dr. Serena Fairfax and with one of the mothers of the 8 children, one of the mothers of that, is that in both cases, they had court orders, or they were getting ready to get up to the point of court orders where they had to leave, where somebody had to make a move. Now, with Dr. Serena Fairfax, with that Fairfax case, is that I read something about how he was constantly excessively drinking. They showed when I did a deep dive, they showed all of these cigarette butts where he'd go outside and there was just tons of them by the house where he isolate himself. He'd drink and he'd go out to get cigarettes, and that was what
Was
he
there an order of protection in play regarding the Fairfaxes? Like, I
no.
know there was a court order because the divorce was pending, and that the court had ordered Justin Fairfax to move up, to vacate the house by the end of this month. So
Right.
by
And
this weekend, he would have had to have left. But was there an order of protection in play?
no, there
And
was not.
I find that disturbing, because if he had a gun, which he clearly did, because
But
you
here's
know,
the thing, she didn't know that he still had it, because evidently he had ideation of harming himself, and the family got involved, and she thought the gun was taken away from him. Here's the other problem with that whole case, with the Fairfax case. In Virginia, it's okay for, if you get divorced, for the couple to still cohabitate under the same roof. In North Carolina, it is not. You must, when they say you have to be separated for so long, you have to be physically apart from one another. And I dare say that this case brings up a factor that people have to be separate and apart from one another, because when you are, divorce is, if you've ever been through one or know a friend who's been through one, it is a death, and yet both people are still alive and they're going through a live death, and it's very uncomfortable. And to be under the same roof when you're having contingency issues with high debt, which they had high debt, he in particular had high debt. He was more than $25,000 in arrears on his child support that he was to give her. She had won full custody of the children. It was all of this stuff was going on,
and that's what,
in the same house, which is insane.
exactly, because that makes no sense to me. If she has court ordered sole custody, and
she had just gotten it. But here's the thing, a lot of times people will not leave their house, because the word is, if you leave your house, that's like abandonment, and you'll lose your equity, or what, you potentially can lose some of your rights. But I dare say that whatever Virginia has on their books about saying that the couple can remain cohabitated under the roof, this case should be the bellwether to make that be changed.
Yeah.
Because you do not need to be under the same roof. You do not. And here's the other thing. There were a number of his friends that said, and one of them is a lady that she even did a video on it. Her name is Sophia Nelson. And she said that she had just spoken to him
that Tuesday. Yeah.
And she knew that he was depressed and stuff. And so one of the problems is that as friends, you feel the guilt they feel, because they feel like, what could I have done? What could I have done? And maybe the thing is, when we see that our one thing that another a thought leader wrote about was that instead of the men who are married and realize that something's going on with their male friend, instead of separating yourself from them, because people tend to take sides in divorce among friends, right? And they were saying that, and this gentleman who wrote this article, he said he thanks God for there were two couples that did not take sides, and that he had a safe harbor to go to talk. And when he got so frustrated, they told him to leave and to come see them and that kind of thing, that he wasn't isolated. It wasn't like he lost his marriage, his children, and his friends too. It's a lot of moving parts to this. And so I will say that mental health does play a factor in all this stuff.
Well, I wish your other guest I was going to spoke about has a background in domestic violence here, but I'm sure if they were here, they would say usually the most dangerous time for a woman in a relationship
she's leaving,
when she tries to leave,
right?
Or when something about the legal process is about to go forward, and it's probably not going to go in the man's favor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's maybe it's how we're not. I don't think we're wired that way. I think we're educated or trained or maybe brainwashed this way. But men treat marriage as if it's a reflection of an accomplishment. I got married, I got a house, I have 2.5 kids and a white picket fence and blah, blah, blah. You've shown that you've made it. Justin Fair from the outside, former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and Dr. Serena Fairfax looked like an ideal couple.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thought it. Everyone says the same thing. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem is, after the party's over, you don't know what the conversations in the car are like. You don't know what that ride home is like. You don't know what it's like when they come home, instead of mommy and daddy being happy, daddy's yelling at mommy because mommy looked too long at somebody, or somebody was talking to mommy that daddy didn't like, or whatever. And then next you know, words. First it starts off with words, and then maybe it gets something, physical, and then maybe it becomes something abusive. It's and for I know, and Dr. and Sophia Nelson, she's a good sister, but she cannot blame herself for what happened any more than Roland Martin can exempt or clean up Justin Fairfax, what Justin Fairfax did to Serena Fairfax by talking about, well, here he was, my frat brother. Look at us cheesing for the camera. All's good in our world, as far as I can see. We don't know what we don't know, and no one. I really don't think it was a matter where if Justin's family, or friends had interceded, what are they going to do? They tried to take the gun away from him. Okay, they tried to de-escalate, because probably at that time they're probably worried about him committing suicide.
That was it.
And the problem with this so many times with these, and you see it in your community, I see it in my community, we all see it in our community. We see those stories and we look at them and we scroll on to the next thing. Murder, suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And how often is it a woman killing the man and then herself? It's not that nearly as much as it's the man killing the woman, because it seems like, if I can't have you, no one can have you. I will kill you. I will kill the children. Like the whole slaying in Shreveport. Was it 9 children?
It was 8 children.
Women.
It was 8.
Yeah, and he shouldn't have had a gun. He had a prior record. Okay,
right.
He was supposedly trying to get help.
He was getting help. He is a veteran. Was a veteran. He was actually getting mental health care at the VA. He actually reached out. He even wrote about it. There's a post about how his thoughts were going. He even reached out to both of his parents, and they essentially said, pray it away. Okay, God bless him. Pray it away. And he actually took his eldest daughter out for a daddy-daughter date the day before. I mean, and what's interesting is that the woman that he married, I forget how many kids he had with her. I think the majority were with her. He shot her several times, and she's still I think she's in ICU or something still. But at any rate, she was divorcing him, and he had already forewarned that he didn't want that, and he was going to shoot up people or whatever. So
back to Jeff's point about the most dangerous time for a woman is when she's leaving or trying to leave a DV situation, and we know that's statistically proven over time.
Over and over again.
I think what makes these cases so galling, whether it's Florida, Virginia, or Louisiana, is and this is where my mind goes, to the children. Yeah. I mean, I had read that the oldest child survived because he escaped through a window and jumped off the roof.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, my dad is gone, my siblings are gone, my mom maybe. I mean, like he may be an orphan. I'm obviously I'm praying for the mom to pull through, but in the event she doesn't.
Go back to the case of Nancy Mateo Brown. I believe her brother had committed suicide a few
Had.
weeks earlier, and he was a survivor of I believe the shooting at Parkland
The
High School.
Parkland, he was a Parkland high school survivor of that,
Right.
and he had PTSD and a bunch of mental health challenges after that situation, and they had diagnosed him, I believe, with schizophrenia.
Oh wait,
So
that was his brother? That was Nancy's brother?
Yes,
yes.
yes, that was her brother.
No, I know who you're talking about. I was because last week was the anniversary of Columbine. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so they had just gone through his suicide, and they had been dealing with his mental health issues for some time, and I think he had just died a month before, and then here
Right.
she is dead by the
Yeah,
hand.
it wasn't that long. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the Parkland was in 2018, but no, I didn't know that was her brother. Wow.
That was her brother. Yes.
Well, the fact remains that Black women in the U.S. are murdered 6 times more than white women, and many times the victim is Black, the perpetrator is Black, and it just doesn't square with what I think some of us think we're trying to push as a narrative, that we as Black people, we love it, we love each other, we love our sisters, we love our culture, we love all this, but there's a lot of anger, a lot of hatred, a lot of unresolved trauma, not just individual but generational, that we still, I still feel that in so many parts of our Black community, like you said about Pam, about the shooter in Shreveport, his family's home, pray it away, pray it away, and prayer helps,
Yes.
religion helps, but so does mental health, and we should stop stigmatizing someone because they need therapy, because they need treatment, maybe they may even need medicine. If you had a toothache, no one, and a toothache, you've had a toothache for a week and it's not going away. You've taken aspirin and all these other things, and say, maybe I need to go to a dentist. Okay, no one's going to look at you like you're weak because you need to get a cavity taken care of. But if you have a mental issue, an emotional issue, something that's stressing you out, something that keeps you staring at the ceiling at night, something that you cannot just pray away, then we should not stigmatize any man or woman or child that needs to seek psychological help. Sometimes you need to speak to someone who's not in your circle to help you. It might have been too late for the shooter in Shreveport. It was obviously too late for his children and his family. But I think you said in your beginning, Pam, about coming up with solutions, and we can't. I don't have a solution I can come up with in an hour. We have people. We have experts. We have professors and doctors and theologians and so many other people who have worked on this. And until we get over Tuskegee experiment and all the other things that we've gone through in this country, until we normalize treating our mental and our emotional deficiencies as seriously as our physical issues, and because they are just as serious, then we are going to find ourselves having panel discussions like this next week, the week after that, and for the remainder of the year ad infinitum. We have got to get past this distrust and this disrespect that we have created for Black women in our communities and in this country. When you have the unemployment rate for Black women is it's 6.3. It's higher than the national average, in no small part because we have when the Trump administration came in and started firing federal workers, who were a lot of those workers going out the door, Black women.
That's right.
Working class and middle class Black women,
right,
who are now out of work, at home with partners, husbands, boyfriends, that may say, "Oh God, I got to go out and get a job now. I got to pick up the load, carry for us and the family and stuff." Some men will do that. Some men will step away from that responsibility, and we have to bring back. What someone said we need to bring back? We need to bring back the concept of shame. Okay, naming and shaming. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why, Latrice, made me. I wasn't going to name Roland Martin, but now seeing how Latrice opened that door, I will name Roland Martin.
Here's the thing about naming and shaming.
And no disrespect, I like Roland. I've met Roland. We've had our differences over the years, but I think all in all, he's a good brother. But what he did with that, and he rushed out to put those pictures up of him and Justin Fairfax cheesing for the camera, and then here's one or two with Serena in it, okay,
Mm-hmm.
as almost like an accessory on Justin Fairfax's shoulder. It was so tone deaf. It was like, bruh, read the room, okay? Read the freaking room. This is not the time. This is not the place to try to tell me what a good guy a man is who shoots and kills his wife while his two children are in the house and his son is the one that discovers the bodies and calls 911. There's nothing. That's calculation. That's cruelty. And that's the way it should be regarded. You can eulogize him at his funeral. Save it for that. But keep the focus on where it belongs. It belongs on Dr. Fairfax, not on Lieutenant Governor Fairfax.
Mm.
Well, the thing is, like with naming and shaming, like I said before, I'm the kind of person. I call a spade a spade. I cut to the chase, and so he wasn't the only one. There were quite a few guys posting pictures of them with standing next to Fairfax at some kind of event or whatever. Saying he's a good brother. He's in the community doing. So I mean, Roland Martin was probably the most obvious target, but he was definitely not the only one. But my thing with naming and shaming, I'm not opposed to it in theory, but my thing is naming and shaming only goes so far. Because what do you do when you encounter someone who doesn't have any shame? And again, I want to stick to the topic at hand, but I think y'all know who I'm talking about. Donald Trump.
We know.
Naming and shaming only goes so far. But I mean, like you said before, Jeff, I think, again, we need to be honest about how we got here and how we're going to move forward if we're going to move forward. That's why I mentioned before, patriarchy and misogyny is at the root of all these things. Those two things are the foundations. Those are the pillars upon which all of societal ills fall, along with greed and other things. But misogyny and patriarchy, because again, as a Black woman, I'm too busy living my life and doing my thing to hate you or anyone else. Like, I don't move with malice. That doesn't serve me. I don't have time to hate people. It's like, okay, if I'm not your cup of tea, cool. You do you over there, I do me over here. And I'll leave you alone. But unfortunately, men, they have this warped sense of entitlement, which is why one of the reasons why they do the things they do. Like, again, you mentioned earlier, if I can't have you, nobody can have you. But it's like, hey.
Where does that come from, though? Where does that really, what have we done in the raising of these young boys to men to create that sense of entitlement? Where does it come from, Jeff? Where does that come from?
I used to cover a brother on our Columbus School Board, and he once put forward his idea that the worst thing that happened to Black people was integration. That the integration was a great idea, but in the process of following, becoming middle class and following white people out to the suburbs and leaving leaving neighborhoods and back businesses and all that, we fractured our community. And then also we had, and this is going to be, this may sound a little anti-democratic or something like that, but to some extent, so many social welfare programs villainize Black men, force Black men out of homes. Our prison industrial complex locks up thousands of Black men and takes them out, further fracturing our families. So what we have is we have so many families where women are trying to be the father and the mother and the breadwinner and the support system for their children. And there are going to be children that slip through those cracks. So in our manosphere, in our age of the manosphere, there are so many bogus men who say they're men, but they're just basically they're still boys.
Mm-hmm.
Like the aforementioned Kevin Samuels,
Yes.
who not only take the patriarchy and the misogyny, they add capitalism to the mix. You can get rich or die trying. You can get rich by starting a podcast, putting up a blog, TikTok, whatever. And what do? You trash black women. You trash the way they look. You trash the way they dress. You trash everything about them, and you tell them, if you want to have a man like me, you have to look like this, dress like this, act like this.
Mm-hmm.
No. Basically, like the old saying in The Rock. No, know your role and shut your mouth. Mm-hmm. That's what some men are really are pushing as a message of how men should regard women as inferiors. Because after all, black men have been low on the totem pole for a long time, coming out of in slavery, coming out of slavery. So now we're not slaves anymore. Jim Crow laws, pretty much a thing of the past. So now we can be just as sexist and vile toward women as any white man can be. Because if white men were doing this to black women like this, we'd be in the streets. But as black men doing to black women, everybody it's like too bad, and then we move on to the next story.
Well, I think what you mentioned about podcast explosion is very true, because I remember 20 years ago, it was all about blogs. But blogs involve skill. And guess what? So do podcasts. I mean, like, a lot of these yes, podcasts have risen in popularity over the years, but all podcasts aren't created equal, as you very well know. And the thing with the podcast movement is that, yes, you can, it's cheap to produce. Just buy a couple of microphones. You can sit in your house or barbershop or wherever, sit around the table and talk smack for a couple of hours. Yes, I get that. But, a good podcast still has to provide information. You still, I feel like the tools may have changed, but the fundamentals of journalism remain the same. Like you can tell at least I can tell a good podcast from a bad one right away. Let me just say this. I can tell if a podcaster has done his homework versus has not done his homework when talking with a guest.
I agree with you, Latrice, but the fact is, strike the word journalism from podcasting. Okay, these are people. A lot of people consider themselves new journalists or citizen journalists or no journalists at all. And fact checking or presenting something that I'm just asking.
That. You're right, but that's not a flex.
I'm just saying, just giving you my opinion.
Yeah.
For a generation of kids who are looking for somebody, a male voice, somebody with some bass in their voice to tell them this is how you dress, this is how you can make this kind of money, how you can stack some dollars, this is how you can have women dripping off you while I sit by my pool like this. These guys, these influencers, these talking heads, these people who do not care about their audience. They care about their bottom line. They care about their clicks. They care about their views, and they care about the controversy they stir up when they crap on black women, and they get away with it, and they've been getting away with it, and they'll keep getting away with it until.
So then my question is, if they don't care about the quality of their content, how do they keep people tuning in or coming back? Because ultimately, again, like if I buy an item, let's say I go to a restaurant and I order some food and the food don't taste good, I'm not going to go back a second time. So if they're serving crappy food and yet people keep coming through the door, what does that say? I feel like that's an indictment. And I think we can have a whole separate conversation about journalism, but I just feel like that's an indictment in and of itself. So they don't have standards. Okay, fine, but that's not a flex.
But I think you have to look at, are you looking at that from your perspective, from your at your age, as opposed to a 18-year-old or 20-some-year-old on their phone?
I'm looking at it. I want to answer that question. I'm looking.
What did finish your statement, Jeff?
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying, I don't think, I know I am not. and I doubt that you are, or you are, Pam, that you are the core audience for from these guys who do this sort of stuff. Journalism, as we know it, is dying a slow, painful death.
Yes, no argument there.
Newspapers disappear, as radio wanes, as network and cable news are being bought up by billionaires and Saudis and Saudi oil monarchs. What we consider news, that stuff is disappearing fast. So people are getting their information off of their phones, off of what some social influencer tells them is this is a place you should go to eat. This is what you should wear. Here's a hey, go out there on TikTok and go out there and start run up on people's doors and banging on the door and run away. It's people will do silly, stupid things because someone they see is telling them. So forget about the silly pranks or dumb things that people tell you. Think about the fact that some of these guys also do not like women. They especially do not like Black women. If I can guarantee you, if I started a podcast next week, and here's a 70-year-old Black man, I'm going to tell you all the things I've learned in 7 decades about why Black women are trash. I would get much more feedback than if I said 70 years of life. Here's what makes Black women the most wonderful women that God ever put on this planet. I would get some views, but I would get a lot more views if I trashed my own women.
Yeah, because negativity sells. I mean, you see it in politics all the time. Like politicians try to run clean campaigns, but it ultimately falls apart because negativity works. But to answer your question, I'm looking at it as someone who is media literate. Media literacy has gone the way of the dinosaur. And I think that's the real problem here. Media literacy or lack thereof, just like the lack of financial literacy. I mean, we can go on and on, but I think that is the root of the problem. Because yes, some of these content creators and influencers will come out and say they're not journalists. It's like, well, yeah, I can see that. Because journalism is a skill. Interviewing someone, doing a good interview, doing your research, coming up with good questions, that is a skill. And that skill still matters. Even though the profession has taken a serious nosedive, it still matters, because I think that's why so many people are walking around ignorant, whether it's about domestic violence, whether it's about the economy, this, that, the other, whatever subject you want to throw in there. I think that's the root of it all. People are not media literate. And if I'm tuning into a podcast, let's just take Shannon Sharp, for example.
Oh, Lord.
I don't expect him to be Ed Bradley. As a former journalist, I know that he's not going to be Ed Bradley. However, that's not a license to be an idiot either. You still have a responsibility. I mean, again, like it's like having a driver's license. It's a privilege, not a right.
Well, as a commenter just said, that the algorithm supports negativity. Okay.
Well, yeah, like I said, negativity sells.
Right.
Yeah.
You said right. Negativity sells, and being negative toward Black women and Black people people in general, but Black women specifically, also feeds that algorithm. And media literacy is a part of the problem, is part of the solution, but it starts, I think, have to start on a more personal basis. We have to raise young men to respect young women and older women and middle-aged women and all women. Okay, your personal beef with a woman is just that, your personal beef with that particular person. When you extrapolate that to the entire, all Black women, you've crossed the line. You've crossed the line past misogyny. You've blown right past patriarchy, and you just become a straight up hater of women. You hate women.
Yeah, when you paint somebody with a broad brush, that is indeed. You're right. You're right.
We've got, we can quote the music, the songs that clown Black women. We can look at movies that stereotype Black women. Heck, the best movie, the supposedly best movie of last year, One Battle After Another, is very problematic how it treats Black women and how it depicts Black women.
Which one was that?
One Battle After Another is one with Tiana Taylor and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah,
Well, let's put it this way. We got my family. We tried to watch it. Tried to watch it on during I think Christmas or something like that, and we kept pulling up. And about 10 or 15 minutes into the movie, there was a moment between, shall we say, Sean Penn and Tiana Taylor that made us say, I think we're just going to bail here, and we'll get back to it. And we never got back to it.
Oh, so, really?
Those of you who have seen the movie may know what that scene is. I'm gonna keep this G-rated and leave it and let it be.
Okay, I get the point. Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the movie either, so I've heard. I have a sense of what Jeff is talking about. I mean, but isn't Sean Penn old enough to be Tiana's father?
What's your point?
I'm not saying it to be sarcastic, but it's like, okay, I'm old enough to remember Sean Penn from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which came out, 40-something years ago? So the idea of them doing the horizontal mambo or whatever happened in the movie doesn't quite ring true to me. But again, it's a movie. I didn't see it, so I'm not going to speak on it.
I'll just say it was not it wasn't.
I've heard you're not the first person I've heard critique that. I've heard people say, yeah, the first I was told if you can get past the first 15, 20 minutes, then the rest of the movie's okay. But yeah, like I said, I have an idea of what you're talking about, but I haven't seen it for myself. So I'm just going to stop there.
I failed then. I failed to get past the first 20 minutes. Then. And you know what? I'm okay with that.
Dwayne Wells says, anybody who thinks black men are the problem, ask who's raising them and how. Dwayne, we went into this in depth, I think prior to you joining, maybe. Yeah. Zachary, we have to raise young women to respect themselves. How long do you think sagging would have lasted if women had said, I can't be seen with you looking like that?
Well, we do say it. That's the thing. That's not enough
to just say it. Not enough.
I mean, I agree with that part. Not enough, but it has been said because in fact, this is like, I remember this was like a long time ago, but I remember a guy approached me in the street and his pants were sagging. And I said to him, if you can't buy a pair of pants that fit properly, how can you afford to take me out on a date? And I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck when I said that to him, but it's like, I personally never found that look to be appealing. I know the root of that, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But there are many women who have made it known that the sagging look is not a good look. So that's not on us.
Well, and Tracy says, so it's the woman's fault that a man is sagging.
Well, we get blamed for everything else, Tracy, so I'm not surprised by that. But again, the sagging pants is not on us. Look, you can miss me with that BS.
We can all say that who's raising these men to become these boys to become these men, and we can say, okay, well, whose fault is it? Is it the mother's fault? Is it the father's fault? Is it the fact that there's no father around that they help mommy? I don't know, but I will say this: facts are facts. Not opinions, not feelings. And when I read here where it says more than 9 in 10 black female victims knew their killers. That's not some white serial killer playing on black women. There's plenty of them out there. Okay. Yeah. Plenty of white serial killers that preyed on black women. But just for the regular around the way domestic violence. The victim, a black woman who's being victimized by someone she knows and someone that looks like her. Okay, she's black, and her assaulter and her killer is black. And we can say all this thing about who's raising who and whatever. But at the end of the day, when a black woman kills a black man, that's a crime. But when a black man kills a black woman, that's also a crime. And let's not split the difference with this kind of both sides nonsense. Our black women are under assault in every sense of the word, financially, economically, housing, jobs, health, infant mortality. They should be able to have a little peace and safety in their own homes with the man they live with. And then when they don't,
that's a problem.
It's a problem, and we need to be honest and face that problem.
Yeah. We got a lot, y'all. And like you said, we can't figure it all out in an hour, but we came through some interesting stuff. I'm so happy I was able to get your comments on the stage, because I'm gonna tell y'all, StreamYard has changed something, and I had serious problems signing on today, and I couldn't share my screen because I had a few things I wanted to share, like little video things, but I don't even want to try it because I don't want to mess. Like I said, they've changed some things, so I'm just happy I was able to get the comments on of the participants on the show. Any final thoughts, Latrice? I'll let you start first.
I would say just conversations like these. I find conversations like these to be useful and helpful. And I mean, just talking amongst your friends, because again, just back to a few minutes ago, I think, in terms of pointing fingers, part of being an adult is owning your sugar honey iced tea. It's one thing to be a 12, 13, 14-year-old doing or saying stupid things, because at that age, you don't know any better. But when you're on the other side of 21, the other side of 25, and especially the other side of 30, 40, and 50, it's like, come on now. Mm. Like in my case, I turned 50 years old in January. So if you're yes. So I am a half century old. If a 50-year-old man was to step to me with sagging pants, it's like, no, I just can't. I didn't go for it when I was 30. I'm definitely not going to go for it at 50. And again, and to fix your mouth to ask, oh, well, who raised that 50-year-old? It's like, come on, bro. Really? You mean that 50-year-old man can't think for himself and realize, hey, my pants shouldn't be sagging around the crack? Come on, like miss me with that nonsense. Mm-hmm. So it comes down to accountability, basically. And accountability means different things to different people, but at a certain age, you know right from wrong. Right. Period. Right. And I'm gonna seat the mic and give it to Jeff. Thank you.
Well, first, let me thank you, Pam, for inviting me on the show this evening, and thank you, Latrice, as well. And also, you have a very intelligent and engaged audience participating as well. These type of conversations they're not fun, and they're usually sparked by multiple tragedies, as this one has been. But also, there's almost always an opportunity somewhere to be found, even in the most horrendous tragedy, if there's nothing else, just to learn. Mm-hmm. And if you are a father, or if you are a mother, raise your daughters and raise your sons. Raise women to respect men, and definitely raise men to respect women, because women, whatever brothers are catching, sisters are catching it times two, at least, okay? Because it's hard. The most despised person in America is still a Black woman. The most crapped on person in this country is Black women, from the White House to the apartment houses, everywhere and everywhere in between. I am so highly favored and truly blessed that the roll of the genetic dice let me come out in this world as a man. Because if I'd come out as a woman, woo, what sisters go through sometimes, I don't know how y'all do it. But you're strong, you're intelligent, you're beautiful, and you should be held up with the respect that you deserve. And when you get respect, you give respect. And maybe if brothers give more respect to some sisters, and some sisters can give that respect to brothers, we can get to a place where we can have these honest conversations about why so much violence is happening. Why on those Friday nights and Saturday nights, so many sisters are not around when Monday comes around, because something has happened to them over the weekend, and it's happened at the hands of someone who's supposed to love and protect them. We have a problem here, but we can solve it. And we don't need a federal program. We don't need white people to come to our rescues. We have to say, we're going to put this on our shoulders, and we're going to carry that load.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Jeff.
We got a lot of thanks in the comments, and there was one comment about noticing the yellow signs before they get to red.
That is true too. That is true.
Samaj Brown says we are operating out of inherited paradigms. It is imperative that we adopt a different world view. What is a woman for? What is a man for? These are legitimate questions as we need to return to the core of thinking. Let's see. When I was a kid, there were rules and consequences for not following them. That doesn't seem to be the case today. Okay, Dwayne. And Dawn, great conversation. Thank you. Thank you, audience.
Thank you
so much for your engagement, your thoughtful engagement. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Latrice.
Thank you. Thank you
so much. And we'll do it again. Hopefully next week, we'll probably be talking about politics again. You know what? I feel like even though this wasn't a happy topic, at least it wasn't about orange. Okay. So, oh boy. But anyways, we're going to say good night, everyone. Let's wave off. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Be safe. Thank you.
All right,
now will my stream? Okay, here it goes. My outro. See, look at this. I'm having all these little technical issues. There it goes.